Hi everybody, and welcome to my channel, Spanish Pills, the best YouTube channel to learn to speak Spanish. Hola valientes amantes del español y bienvenidos a mi canal, Spanish Pills, el mejor canal de YouTube para aprender a hablar español. Many of my students, valientes amantes del español, like all of you, have recently asked me to help them learn some basic Spanish cooking vocabulary. Apparently, most of them not only like Spanish language, but also Spanish food. And they tell me that it's kind of hard when they are trying to follow a recipe in Spanish because they end up spending more time looking up the meaning of so many words rather than paying attention to the instructions of the recipe. So lately, I've been sharing with them some basic Spanish cooking vocabulary. And since they seem to be very happy with the idea, I've decided to do the same with all of you guys. What do you think? Well, before I forget, I have an extra surprise for you at the end of the video, but I can tell you more right now because es una sorpresa. So, ¿os apetece aprender un poquito de vocabulario en español relacionado con la cocina? ¿Sí? ¡Fantástico! Well, you already know the deal, right? 3, 2, 1, comenzamos. Primer verbo, to boil. In Spanish, hervir or cocer. Be very careful with cocer because if you spell it with an S, it doesn't mean the same. It means to sew, to join two pieces of cloth together by putting thread through them with a needle. Okay? About the example, el agua está hirviendo. A very easy one. Segundo verbo, to peel. In Spanish, pelar. Now pay attention to the example. Primero, pela las papas y después, córtalas en trocitos. About the verb to chop, we will see it in a few minutes. But pay attention to the word papa. In Spain, they say patata. But in the Canary Islands and in many other Spanish-speaking countries, we say papa instead. Both options are correct and they mean the same. Tercer verbo, to sweeten, endulzar in Spanish. Let's take a look at the example. Endulcé la infusión de manzanilla con miel. About chamomile tea in Spanish, unless it has tea, we say infusión instead. And by the way, chamomile means manzanilla, which has nothing to do with manzana, okay? Another example, if we are making a ginger tea without tea, we would say infusión de jengibre. But if it does have tea, we could say té de jengibre or té con jengibre. Both options are correct. Cuarto verbo, to spread. One of the meanings, in a cooking context, let's say, is untar. The example, no untes demasiada mermelada en mi tostada. This is a verb I use a lot, especially when talking about butter or peanut butter or, there are so many things to spread, right, on a toast. Vamos a por el quinto verbo, to beat. In Spanish, batir. This one, we use it especially when we are talking about eggs, okay? To beat eggs, batir huevos. Deberías utilizar un tenedor para batir los huevos. Now to chop. In Spanish, picar or cortar en trocitos. You remember that this verb has already appeared in an example in a previous verb. I can't remember which one, but to chop. it means cortar en trocitos. And we use it a lot when we're talking about onions, peppers, okay? So the example is, pica las cebollas y los pimientos. But you can also use it if you want to chop fruit, for instance. Cortar fruta en trocitos. Actually, whenever you say chop fruit in Spanish, don't say picar, but always cortar en trocitos. That's how we chop fruit in Spanish, okay? Séptimo verbo, to add. In Spanish, añadir or agregar. Agregar is a more formal translation of the verb to add. And you would probably find it in an old recipe, okay? We usually translate to add as añadir. The example, deberías añadir más azúcar al café. In this case, you could also say poner. I guess in English you could also say to put more sugar instead. And if you decide to use the verb to put in Spanish, poner, you would have to say, deberías poner más azúcar en el café. You would have to change al café and say en el café instead, okay? You would have to use the preposition en el café instead of al café. Octavo verbo, to season. In Spanish, sazonar or condimentar. Both options mean the same and you can actually choose whatever you prefer, okay? You can pick any of them. Mezcla todos los ingredientes antes de sazonar con sal y pimienta. Noveno verbo, to steer. In Spanish, remover or revolver. Both options are correct, they both mean the same, so it's up to you. Añade la harina sin dejar de remover hasta que quede sin grumos. Smooth in cooking means sin grumos. Y vamos a por el décimo verbo, to slice. In Spanish, cortar en rodajas. ¿Puedes cortar la piña en rodajas? If we are talking about meat or ham or, I don't know, chorizo, for instance, instead of cortar en rodajas, we would say cortar en lonchas. Even if we are talking about cheese and you want to slice cheese, you would say cortar en lonchas. Rodajas is just for fruit and vegetables. To knead. In Spanish, amasar. You can use your hands or any other thing, like a rolling pin, okay? Un rodillo in Spanish. Amasa la masa durante al menos 5 minutos. And of course, you can use this verb if you're talking about making bread or making cookies. To grate, in Spanish, rayar. Be very careful with this verb because in Spanish we have another verb that looks more similar to this one, that is gratinar. And obviously it doesn't mean the same. It means to gratin. It is what we call a false friend. Have you ever heard that expression? We use it when two words look alike but have different meanings, like to be embarrassed and estar embarazada. To be embarrassed means estar avergonzado or avergonzada, y estar embarazada is to be pregnant. Now, about the example. Luego raya el queso y espolvoréalo sobre la pasta. To sprinkle is a verb that I haven't included in this video, but just so you know, it means espolvorear. To whip. As a cooking verb, it means in Spanish montar or batir. Let's take a look at the example. Con un batidor, monta la crema pastelera y el azúcar glass juntos y después añade el extracto de vainilla. Most of the times we translate to whip as montar instead of batir because we prefer to translate to beat as batir, okay? Actually, if you pay attention to the definition of the verb to whip and the definition of the verb to beat, they are not the same. I mean, they are not exactly synonyms. They don't mean the same. That's what I mean. And in Spanish, it happens the same. So whenever you have the verb to whip, try to translate it as montar rather than batir. If you want to say batir, then you should use to beat. Penúltimo verbo. We are about to finish. To bake. In Spanish, hornear. Preparé una tarta para la fiesta. Okay, where is the verb hornear? Well, the thing is that we don't really use it that much. I mean, to bake means hornear. That's correct. But when you say that you bake a cake, you don't say horneé una tarta, but preparé una tarta, like I made a cake. Maybe you can use it if you're talking about making bread or making cookies, but it's not a verb that we use a lot in Spanish. I do see that you seem to use it a lot in English, so that's why I thought it was kind of interesting for you to know how to say it in Spanish. But what it really means is that whatever you're cooking, you are using an oven, okay? Y ya por fin, el último verbo antes de la sorpresa, before the surprise. To melt, fundirse or derretirse. If you're talking about an ice cream, you use derretirse. If you're talking about cheese, for instance, you use fundirse. The example, cómete el helado antes de que se derrita. And now the surprise. Aquí está la sorpresa. An exercise for you to put into practice everything you've just learned in this video. All you have to do is to match the images with the correct verb in Spanish. If you want, you can pause the video, take your time. I will tell you the correct answer in each case. The first image. What are we doing here? Batir. Option C. Very good. Second image. Derretir. Option A. And the last image. Option B. Cortar en rodajas. Let's try another group of images. First image. The right option is option C. Remover. Second image. The right option is A. Añadir. And the third image. The right option is the option B. Endulzar. Penúltimo grupo de imágenes. First image. What are we doing? We are chopping. So the right option is B, picar. Second image, what are we doing? Rayar, option C. And what are we doing on the last image? We're spreading on a toast some avocado. So the right option would be option A, untar. Y último grupo de imágenes, last group of images. First image, what's happening here? The right option is C, hornear, to bake. Second image, what are we doing? The right option is A, pelar, to peel. And the last image, what do we have here? many different spices. So what we're supposed to do is to season. So the right option is option B, sazonar. Okay, thanks for watching. I hope you like this extra surprise at the end of the video. Muchas gracias por ver este video. Remember, if you enjoy it, like and subscribe. Hasta pronto. Adiós.